Hey everybody, Chris here. It's been a while since I've had a chance to do one of these videos. It's been a really long year. I've been incredibly busy and just haven't really had a lot of time to keep up with this kind of work, but hopefully I'm gonna have some more time to do that here coming up. I wanted to make this video because earlier in 2023, Eric Kessler reached out to me, and him and his team of ninjas over at Kessler Crane were working on seeing how can we do like an Unreal Engine integration with their motion control equipment. Now, I've already worked with Unreal Engine for quite a bit now. I've got 4 little micro shooting stages where I use something like an 86-inch TV and my own motion control equipment, and with that I can create environments and create expansive looking environments for my kind of work, which is by and large botanic time lapse or mushroom time lapse, just any kind of studio based filming and time lapse. Now, generally in the past, these virtual production studios are massive. They got huge LED volumes, room for all the people on stage, multiple tracking systems up to make sure that the cameras get exactly what it's supposed to get, and all of that is super expensive. But you can actually scale this down quite nicely to a very affordable cost that you can bring home to just your home production studio, especially if you're into things like stop motion animation. That's a great one for this kind of work, as well as any kind of tabletop production, so maybe product shots and things like that, or just little passion projects. There's a lot to learn with it, but I feel that the group over at Kessler Crane has made it actually really simple to integrate this. And also, it was a really cool opportunity because I felt some of the other systems that were doing it might be lacking in some areas, so the opportunity for me to just sit down there and collect my thoughts and think, if I was going to do this myself, how would I want to do it? That was wonderful because there were a couple of different ideas that I could bring in. Like one, you can manipulate more than just the camera. You can manipulate lights. You can manipulate sliders, things like that. I don't mean like sliders. I mean like little dials and stuff in order to change things like weather patterns and stuff like that in Unreal Engine. There's an enormous amount of things that you can do. They did a killer job. It interfaces through their app called Chaos. This is available on Windows, PC, Mac, and all that. And it's just a great motion control platform in order to set up complex keyframe movements in order to move the cameras around and film what you're trying to film. So having the opportunity to work with them on that was absolutely awesome. And I got to say, I think they absolutely killed it. It just works, and it works really well. In fact, at one point, I think I had done some testing for them, and it was a couple weeks over like the holidays and everything that I didn't do anything with it. I came back in, and I found that my camera was still there, sliding back and forth on the slider, and the display was still responding to it. So it's super stable, and it's very simple to use. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a tutorial on how to use this and how to go about setting it up. And I'm going to be putting out some more tutorials in the future, but this is going to be an initial one on how to get the camera working, how to build the virtual camera, link it to the real camera, get the end display up, and get all of that set up from beginning to end. You should be able, by the time this is over, you should be able to set up your own end display and have this working. So I really hope that this is useful and informative, and keep an eye out for some more tutorials coming out in regards to this. And if anybody has any questions, by all means, you can reach out to me at any time. Furthermore, Kessler and his team are always happy to answer any questions. So I hope this is useful, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. So this is Kessler Chaos, and there's a couple differences that have happened once they introduced the Unreal integration. One, you're going to notice there's 2 bars down here on the sliders. So if I go to pan and I move it, you'll notice that it takes a while for this one to catch up, and this one actually is tracking the movement of the camera. So this is where it's supposed to be, this is where it's going to end up, and that's kind of important for this to work with Unreal. So the first thing you are going to want to do, though, is calibrate your axis. Now what I do is I do a -90 and a +90 on my pan. So I'll just do 90 degrees to the left, mark again, 90 degrees to the right, mark end, and then in there I'll do -90 and 90. And it's important that you have these numbers in there, and make sure you have the proper designation here for like degrees. Do that for the pan, and do that for the tilt. And then for the slider, same kind of thing, but you're measuring distance. I have mine set in inches, so I know that I have 2 feet worth of travel from end to end, and I am going at -10 and 14, and the reason that's not -12 and 12 is because my slider is a little bit offset from the middle of the TV, just because of it's a small environment in here. I mean, this is a tiny little stage that I'm working with. So You need to make sure all that's set up. And then once you're good there, you can go ahead and open up the Unreal Engine tab. And as you can see here, let's go ahead and go through the top down. So on and off, that's whether or not you want it to be enabled. So if you want to use this, you're going to need to turn it on. This is the Unreal Engine IP address. So if you are using this in the LiveLink controller to talk to a machine that is used specifically for editing and not for running the display, you would need to go ahead and put that IP in there for the editor. And then if you have a different machine you're going to be using for the display, once you launch the end display, you are going to want to make sure this is the correct IP address for that one. So right now you see it's 127.0.0.1. That is the home IP. So all my editor, my end display, and my machine running chaos, it's all the same machine. So that makes it nice and easy. Connect will connect to the system, or will connect to Unreal, and test is going to do a little test where you can check these dots and see if they turn green, and that means the communication is working. So over here on the connections, you're going to see we have several different options. These are the actual axes that are built, and if you look here, it says using the pan axis on CS/USB CS1. That is the CS Cineshooter USB connected CS1, and CS1 is the name of that device. You see here, Cineshooter CS1, and I can rename it if I want. If I had two Cineshooters on here, there'd be CS1 and CS2. If I had three, there'd be CS3, go so on and so forth. Let's open this back up, and we're going to kind of go through the settings on this. So right now we have pan, and the description is pan. I can name this whatever I want. I can name it my monkey if I want. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes sense to me. Then here is where you select which device. This is where you set the axis name for chaos. And then URE virtual camera, you're going to want to use camera 1 in the beginning. Now, if you're going to be using multiple devices and controlling multiple cameras, you would go with camera 2, camera 3, and things like that. But we're just going to focus on camera ID 1 for right now. And the function of that is pan. Now, this is the Unreal function. So pan means that it's going to do a rotate on the Z-axis. Tilt would be a rotate on the Y-axis. They believe it's Y. That gets a little confusing. I'll get to that here in a second. And then your X position, Y position, Z position. So those would be different moves that you're sliding where you're actually changing the location versus these are you're changing the orientation. And then zoom and focus. Under here, what you want to make sure is that these values match what you have over here. Okay? Now on my Y position here for the slider, it doesn't. I'll get to that in a second. But as you see, if I change this to camera, I don't want to make this camera 4, all those change. So whatever camera you're on, you need to make sure that you have that set up correctly. So for my tilt, I have negative and positive 35. For pan, negative and positive 90. If you're not careful, if you accidentally do negative 35, it's not going to work very well. Same over here. If you're trying to move an axis and it's not moving, make sure your minimum and maximum values are not the same, or else that's going to be the result. Moving down, tilt, same thing, X position. Now, X position, when I'm looking at X to me is left and right. Y is forward and backwards, but Unreal for some reason lives 90 degrees off. So when you're using X position or making a slider, in fact, let's just go ahead and name this to slider. And we have axis name as slider. You don't want to use the X position, or else it's going to be sliding forward and backwards instead of left and right. Okay, so this is just something to keep in mind. You definitely want to use Y position. Then down here, once again, all those same values. Now here I have something a little bit different, and I'm not going to address this too much on this tutorial, but we will on another one. This one is called Planet. So this is if I want to rotate everything that I see on the screen in Unreal, and basically rotating the entire end display. This is how I do it. So I'll have camera ID 2, and then as you'll see later when we connect through LiveLink, there will be 2 camera IDs, and I can associate one of the cameras, camera 1, to the pan, tilt, and slide, and then camera 2 I can associate to like the end display if I want to rotate the entire thing and move it around within the environment without having to go dive into the editor. So that's pretty much everything that we have here. If you want to add a new one, you just hit new connection and you fill all this out as needed. I'm going to go ahead and delete that off. But this is pretty much all there is, but this is a very flexible way to move forward with this. And you're going to see that there's a lot of possibility here. So let's go ahead and go to the Unreal Engine portion. All right, we're going to go ahead and launch Unreal. I'm using 5.2.1. This should be fine with 5.3 or 5.0, even 4.7.2 or 2.7, whichever that one is, the older version. This all pretty much goes along the same way. All right, now that we have this, we are going to do a brand new one. We're going to click on Virtual Production. I'm going to do Kessler Demo 1. Okay, so here we are. And this is a template, so it does have some things that are already set up in there. But that doesn't matter. If you're doing this on a new project, we're going to go over everything anyway. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is enable some plugins. So we're going to go to Edit, Plugins, type in Live Link. Make sure that Live Link is enabled. You want to make sure Live Link over End Display is enabled. Live Link 3D. You need to make sure that's enabled. And we're going to go End Display, make sure this is enabled. And switchboard, we're going to need to make sure this is enabled. Once that's done, we're going to have to restart. So go ahead and hit restart. Okay, we're back and everything is good. So we are ready to start working. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, I'm going to delete the Cinema Camera Actor because I don't give a crap about the one that they had in there. I'm going to make my own. And there's really not a lot in here. So it's a pretty bare. I'm just going to move this over for something for us to look at with the end display. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is actually build the end display. So down here, I'm going to click on Content Drawer and I'm going to dock in the layout so I have access to it. And we want to be in the Content folder. Do a right click and look for End Display. If you don't see End Display listed, that means the plugin is not active. So go ahead and redo that and come back to this point and then create the End Display config. Do a new config, finish. I'm not going to rename it, I'm just going to leave it. Double click it to open. And this is the end screen where you build your end display. Okay. Now what we have here, this is actually a mesh that is going to represent the display that we're going to be using. If you have like some crazy thing with these big walls that are all LED volumes and they're all built out at different angles and wrapping around, you're going to have to go get that scanned, 3D scanned, and have a mesh built and bring it in for that to work properly. But if you just have like a 55-inch screen TV like I do for this project, it's not a big deal. Just go ahead and we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to delete this. We'll build, well, no, I'll leave it in. There's not a lot to do with the end display screen portion. Okay, the one thing you're going to want to do is under scale, you need to make it the right size. I'm going to lock this so the values stay the same, and I know that I'm 121 centimeters apart. At least I believe it's 121 centimeters. And you can see now it's larger, 68 high, 121 across. This all looks good. So then I also want to, you can see right now, I'm set at 100 centimeters out and 50 centimeters up. I want to center this. So you see it goes right back over to here. And you see this little ball. This is going to be the 0 point for the screen. So my camera is not in the screen, but when I do start it up, I have it centered from the top and bottom and left and right to the middle of the screen. So what I need to do is I need to move the screen out, and my camera 0 point is 80 centimeters out from the camera. Oop. The wrong one. Oh, we'll reset that. There we go. I had the wrong thing selected. So we're going to go to 80 centimeters out. And now this represents where my camera is at the 0 point versus where the screen is. 80 centimeters away, dead smack in the middle. Next, what we want to do is we want to build in a cluster node. So I'm going to click on Add and Add New Cluster Node. And as you see here, I've got node 0. You can name this if you want. I just usually leave it. And I'm only doing full HD on this. I only have a 1080 Ti graphics card on this computer, and it's running everything. So I'm not going to be doing 4K on this, even though the TV can handle it. And generally, the 1080 Ti seems to be able to do 4K pretty well with this for this kind of purpose. But there's just no real need to go that higher resolution. So I'm going to leave it at 1080. And in here, this is the host IP address. This is going to be the IP address of the computer that's running the display. So in my case, my display, my editor, and my chaos are all going to be on the same computer, simplifying it. So in this case, I will just use 127.0.0.1. That means it is this computer itself. And then I'm just going to go to add. Next, I'm going to go to VP0. We're going to go to projection policy. We're going to go from simple to mesh. And we're going to do and display screen. Now you see there is a display on this now. And down here you can see the display as well. So we need to go ahead and add the IC VFX camera. So we're going to go in here, go to add, and just click on that. And now you see there's a little window within. Okay. So that's all we really need to do with this. Now if you have multiple screens, you would build another node. Actually another viewport, and then you could like arrange them out and everything to try to create what your situation is. So one of my robots actually has two 85-inch screen TVs on it, so that one does have an additional screen over here. But for the sake of this, we're not going to go that deep into it. There are other tutorials that address that with more in depth. So I'm going to go compile and save. Okay. Now we have the end display. We're just going to grab it and we're just going to drag it up into the scene, and I'm going to put it here so I can see this nice little block thing in color checker, you know, so it's all nice and easy to see. In fact, I'm going to go G. Okay. So now we have that. Now the next thing we need to do is we need a cinema camera. So I'm going to go here to add. Well, it's add to project, and we're going to go down to cinematic and go down to cinema camera actor, and you see it's going to set it over here, but we want to actually anchor it down onto the end display. So I'm going to go click on the cinema camera actor, and we're going to drop it into the end display, and then I'm going to zero out the location of it, and you're going to see it pop right over here. So right now the cinema camera actor is at the 0 point, and this should reflect the 0 point of my Blackmagic cinema camera that's on the CineShooter. Once we're in here, we're going to need to add live link controller. So just type in live. Okay, and we'll get back to that in a minute. We're going to do subject representation, but we don't have that in here yet. So what we need to do is we need to set up the live link and actually connect the Kessler Chaos to Unreal. So here you see there's a little tab here called live link. If you don't have that, go to window, or I'm sorry, window, and then you're going to go to virtual production and live link. When you click that, you might get another window. If you want, you can always grab the tab and drag it in here so they're both on the same thing. So in here, we're going to hit source, live link 3D source. And if you don't see live link 3D source, you need to make sure you go into the plugin and find live link 3D and make sure that is active. This is going to be the IP address of the computer that is going to be running Chaos. Once again, all of mine are the same PC, so I can do 127.0.0.1, but if this is going to be like an iPad or maybe a different machine, you would have to pay attention to that, make sure you have it set up correctly. Now we're going to hit add. As you see, it's receiving, but we don't have anything else happening here yet. So it's waiting to get something from Chaos. So let's go ahead and give it something. We're going to go into Chaos, and I'm going to go to the URE tab. And I am going to go ahead and we're just going to shut that off and turn it back on. I'm going to hit connect, and I'm going to hit test. Boom, both of them are there, right? And that's because I have camera ID 1, camera ID 1, camera ID 1, and I have camera ID 2. If I had more with camera ID 3 and 4, we would see all those show up, and this is how you can associate the different functions that you're trying to do at Chaos to different actors within Unreal. Now, this is a critical part that you cannot forget. Go to presets and do save as preset. And I'm just going to go ahead and save it like this. Now I'm going to go into edit. I'm going to go to project settings. We're going to type in live link. And you see here, default live link preset. I'm going to go down, I'm going to select the preset I just built. And what this is going to do is the live link connection is not automatic unless you have this preset put in here. So it knows that that's the default preset. So as soon as an Unreal instance for this level is launched, it is going to try to connect to the Kessler system. Without it, it's not going to connect. So we're going to go ahead and, and if you're using like an older version, like a 4X on Unreal, there's going to be a little thing under here that says /game. If you see that, go ahead and clear that out, or else it's not going to know where to find it. But on 5 and up, it doesn't seem to be an issue. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. So now we should be set up to any time that we launch Unreal, it is going to be looking for Chaos to tell it, or to feed it that information. Let me go over here, and we're just going to, I want to show you something. Move this over a little bit, because Chaos is a little bit of a screen hoarder. If you hit test, see those turn green right here? Yeah, that's what we want to make sure. That means that we are actually talking, okay? So now that we have all of that connected, we need to go back to Unreal. Main, let's get that big again. And down to Live Link Controller, now watch what happens. We have camera 1 and camera 2. So we're going to associate camera 1. And then we're going to go to the end display config, and in here find IC VFX camera, and the information that you see here is going to be exactly the same as if you open this up and select IC VFX camera. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for the camera that's going to connect to. So cinema camera actor, okay, wasn't seeing it because it was kind of smushed in here. So you look for the cinema camera actor, and we're going to go to actor 0. Okay, now we have established that this camera is being manipulated by Chaos, and that the in-camera VFX camera that's over on the live link or the end display is also associated with this to show the proper frustum to this. So let's go ahead and give this a quick test. All right, I'm going to bring Chaos up, and I'm going to put it on pan, and I'm just going to move the camera. As you can see there, it's moving, and look at that screen. So this is the frustum that's going to follow around with it. Now, we're not quite done yet, because you're going to want to make sure that your camera is set the way that you want. So in this, I'm using a Blackmagic Cinema camera. So I'm going to be doing Super 35 for the sensor. So that is the correct format for the sensor on the camera. For current focal length, I'm at 24. And as you scroll through here, you have a lot of different options. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the focus. I'm going to go to focus, and I'm looking for manual focus distance. My subject's probably going to be about 40 centimeters away. So there are ways to build out camera lens profiles to make the bokeh and the backdrop reflect what the focal length of the camera is. Generally, I don't mess with that a whole lot, simply because my subjects are awfully small, and everything's going to be out of focus anyway, much beyond the subject. But if you're doing something where you got live people and stuff, and you need to be able to pull that around, that's going to be something to look into. I am not going to cover that today. However, I will work on a tutorial on how to do that. But there are some tutorials already that explain how to do that. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that now. And also, where's my aperture? So 2.8, I'm going to be at 5.6. And as you see, it clears up the image in here a little bit. So it does its best to reflect that. And one more thing that I think is important, and I hate this about it, if you put in VIG for vignette intensity and click on vignette intensity, if you look at this, watch what happens when I drag it down. See that? You can apply a vignette. For some reason, they feel it's appropriate to have that on there. The camera lens is going to create its own vignette, and I don't want this one compounding on that. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that to 0. But that's just a personal choice. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to go to save current level as, and I'm going to type in my level. And that way I know which level that I'm playing on, because that is going to be important. So now that we have Chaos controlling the camera, We have the camera and the end display all set up and everything. We're going to go ahead and launch the switchboard. Okay, so for that, you go in here and you click on Launch Switchboard. Now, the first time you launch this, it's going to go through the process of installing it. So expect that to take 5 to 10 minutes, but that's only something you need to do once. You also need to make sure that you select Launch Switchboard Listener on Login, so it's automatic, and go ahead and launch the Switchboard Listener. I already have one up. I'm going to delete the current config and we're going to rebuild this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is config, new config, and I'm going to go to the Unreal project, not the path, but the project, and I'm going to go browse, and I happen to know where mine is, which is under documents all the way down to Unreal projects, and this is Kessler, which one was it? This one, Kessler Demo 1. You can see I've been doing a couple of these. And then I'm going to select on that and hit open, and I'm going to hit OK, and then we're going to need to add a device. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add an Unreal device, and I'm going to name it editor. And this is going to be 127.0.0.1. And why is that? Because all my stuff is on the same machine. If I had a PC that was running to do the editing, I would put that on here. If it wasn't the same computer, but so you have to do that to make sure it knows where to look for the information. So I'm going to hit OK. Now we need to add an end display, and for here, all I'm going to do is hit populate and hit OK. And then I need to go in here and look at default map, and I need to find my map, which I named my level. Okay. If it's showing up and it's not giving you the right place, you might not be on the right map. So I always save it and name it, just because sometimes it can get a little confusing, figure out which one you're supposed to be using. So we're going to go ahead and go back to here, and I'm going to save this, and we are going to kill Unreal. And then we're going to bring up the end display. So click on here and click on here. And give it a moment. All right, as you can see, we do have the end display up and running. So let's go ahead and test this out real quick. And it is not moving with the camera. In fact, I think I know exactly what it is. So there's a lot of little steps that go into this, and sometimes you're going to have to do a little bit of troubleshooting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to switchboard, and we're going to kill the end display. And we're going to launch the editor. We're going to go back so you can see what I'm doing. Because I know it was working when we were looking in the editor, so there's probably just one thing I missed, and I have a nagging suspicion I know exactly what that is. So we're going to go and get rid of, we don't need all those content drawers. Here we are, and let's see if I move it here, is it going to move? Yep, it's going to move. So I know the issue already. So what we need to do is go back into the end display, and we need to go down to IC VFX camera, and there it is. There's no cinema camera associated in this. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that. That's what I messed up. So I'm going to do compile and save, and now we can just go ahead and shut this thing down, and I'm going to hit save selected. We're going to go back to this, and we're going to launch the node, and I bet you this is going to work a little bit better now. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and let's go to the scene cam. There it is. All right, so now it's already looking better. Let's go ahead and move the camera, and we're going to see if that frustum moves. Yes, it does. So you can see it there, sliding back and forth, and as you see, as it moves far to the side, it skews. So on this side is smaller and this side is bigger, and that's because it's a flat surface trying to show a perfect rectangle to the camera. So this is exactly what we wanted. This is good. And if I do a slide, you can see that there's going to be parallax. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with how that went. So it's there's a lot that you can do with Unreal. It is an absolute sandbox. There are chances that sometimes when you go on there you might get something wrong. Just stick with it, keep learning as much as you can about it. But here it is. I mean, this works right now. It's totally useful for for filming. So I can go through in here and I can set up my keyframes and I can run whatever program I want. I can do time lapse through this, real time through it. It just works great. And during the process of helping with Kessler doing the testing on this, oftentimes I would put this up on a ping pong move or just like repeat the movement, and I'd leave it up and it'd stay connected for like a week and a half without failing. So it's very stable. It's a very easy system to use. I will try to do some more tutorials on this to go over focus or figuring out how to get a lens built in with the profile, and also different things like controlling multiple things at the same time. So anyway, I hope this was useful and I hope this is beneficial. I know I'm going to be using the heck out of this. I'm super excited that this thing is ready to go and ready for use. So I hope you enjoyed this and I hope it was beneficial. Thank you.